Hi, welcome. We are here with members of the Broward County Air Program today. My name is Samantha. I'm with the Air Quality Outreach Program, and I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Anna Suarez. I am the Natural Resources Administrator for the AIR program. I've been doing air quality work since the early 90s. Back in grad school, I have a PhD in atmospheric chemistry. I did a postdoc at the US EPA, and then I came to Broward, and I've been here since.
I'm Ashley Robbins, Environmental Project Coordinator for Broward County's AIR program. Specifically, we do a lot of community engagement and outreach and things like this to be able to teach the public more about air quality, why it's important to them, and why even though it's something that's out of sight, it should not be out of mind. And my background prior to this was also a lot of informal education, community engagement, mostly with nonprofits, but I've been with the county for about 3.5 years now.
Hello, buenos dias. I am Daryl Sybil. I am the environmental program supervisor of Broward's ambient air monitoring section. My background is Bachelor's of Science in Meteorology from the Florida State University, and I also have a PhD in environmental sciences from Florida A&M University.
All right, so we're going to go with
Okay.
Anna. We're going to ask our first question. What is Saharan dust and where does it come from?
It's all in the name. Saharan dust is dust from the Saharan desert, and it comes from the Saharan desert.
So the reason why it's able to make it across the Atlantic Ocean, such a fast body of water in the first place, is because the trade wind is pretty much that wind current that powers the dust, picks it up off of the continent of Africa and pushes it across the ocean, and eventually ends up in our airspace. Not just our airspace, but the Caribbean airspace and the entire eastern shoreboard of the United States. So it tends to be a problem late spring to summer is where like the peak Saharan dust season. And the reason why is because it also coincides with the timing of when the trade wind is the strongest. So of course, when this trade wind is the strongest, it's going to be blowing the dust at a maximum. And it's also why for the beginning of the hurricane season, traditionally speaking, you usually don't have that many tropical cyclones flowing out there because of the presence of the Saharan dust. And as the trade wind settles down a little bit, the occurrences of Saharan dust will also die down with it as well.
So what other forms of particulate matter, particularly PM 2.5, exist?
Oh, there are a lot of different types of PM 2.5. Basically, anything that's PM 2.5 is the aerodynamic diameter of particles. Any particle smaller than 2.5 micrometers in aerodynamic diameter are small enough that they can travel past your nose, down into your respiratory system, and into your lungs. And that's really the risk with them, because they are small, they travel deep, and some of them can contain components that can be toxic and can cause damage to your body. Basically, they can be formed from anthropogenic sources, which are man-made sources, or from natural sources. They can occur when volcanoes explode, when we have forest fires, when there's a lightning strike, and we get a fire. Anytime you burn anything, whether it's fuel in your vehicle, any kind of industrial process, when you're cooking food, when you're using a lawnmower, anything that emits any kind of smoke is going to emit particulate matter. And I think you can get them from trees too, some of the terpenes and things that come off of them. Research that a little bit.
Wow, that's a lot of opportunities for that to get into our air.
So does Saharan dust cause any problems such as health impacts and or any other issues?
It can, and the reason being is it falls under a category of being a particulate matter, a form of particulate matter, and um, with particulate matter, there are certain sizes of particulate matter, particularly the 2.5 micron and below, that are small enough to get into your lungs and pass through your bloodstream. And since it is a foreign material in your body, it doesn't belong there and it can cause all sorts of problems, mainly respiratory and cardiovascular.
That gets to question 5, right? Is there anything we can do to protect ourselves? Well, if you're susceptible to asthma or other, if you're susceptible to asthma or other things that make it difficult for you to breathe sometimes, if the air quality is unhealthy for sensitive, limit your time outdoors, stay indoors as much as you can. You can wear a mask, a KN95 or similar, to protect yourself from those fine particles. We get a lot of fine particle when we have smoke, when we have fires in the Everglades or smoke coming over from Canada or from uh, other countries in the Caribbean or Mexico. It can all come over here because we're in a peninsula. So when you have instances of high PM, if you're susceptible to things, limit your outdoor exposure. Don't do exercises outside because that's just going to make you breathe harder, and those particles are going to go way deep into your lungs. And and stay indoors or wear a mask if you need to.
Thank you, Anna.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we talked a little bit about other locations around the globe already, but in the context of Saharan dust affecting other locations across the globe, if it does, how so?
Oh, it does, and how. We're not that close to the Saharan desert. Europe is a lot closer, and the Canary Islands, and Africa too. So looking outside of the African continent, there have been issues with Saharan dust blowing into Europe. And I think just this past year they had uh, in Greece, there was so much Saharan dust that it was all orange. Everything looked orange. I think it was around March, and there have been instances in the UK, in France, and other areas. And then in the Canary Islands, I saw a video that back in 2000, they had to shut down the airport because the visibility was so bad due to the Saharan dust that they just couldn't fly. When I was a kid, we emigrated from Cuba to this country, but before we came here, we lived in Spain for a couple of years in the Canary Islands. And my mom would say when that Saharan dust came, it's like time to take the clothes off the lines because everything would turn orange. So we get it, and it's filtered more, or we have less by the time it gets here, but other countries near to the source get more. And well, skip this because this will be in the next part. It also blows to other areas in the Caribbean, South America, and whatever, but kind of more at the level that we see it versus the higher levels you see in Europe.
Yeah, so a lot of far-reaching implications, far and near to where the Sahara is. Currently, we've been seeing it in the news pretty often. Why is that? Is this year kind of unusually high for Saharan dust instances?
Yes, it is the highest year we've had since 2022. And we've just been getting a lot of Saharan dust. It is very high. We had almost every day in July was impacted by Saharan dust in South Florida. So you've seen it in the news, and yeah, it's pretty prevalent this year compared to others.
Thank you. Yeah, my eyes are usually not very sensitive to it, but as of late, I feel like I can feel it on those higher Saharan dust days.
Yeah, when it's higher, I can taste it. So yeah.
At what kind of point does it get to be a cause for concern, either the levels or the amount of time, right? The days in which it's happening.
I don't know if there's been any studies on exposure per days per se, but basically it's like any other fine particle. If the air quality index indicates that it's at a level that's unhealthy for sensitive or unhealthy, you should avoid exposure to it as much as you can. Most of the time with Saharan dust, we will get in the moderate area, so it's not as bad. But you kind of have to be your own best advocate for that. Like even if it says moderate and you feel like it's, because usually it's also like really dry and um, it's hot. It's really hot when you get the Saharan dust. So limit your exposure to what your body can handle. And if you find it hard to breathe or if, it's not comfortable, then limit your exposure.
Thank you. We have one last question. Is there any upside to Saharan dust?
Like everything in the world, there's pluses and minuses. So uh, there's a couple pluses for Saharan dust. It actually helps fertilize the Amazon rainforest. It brings in a lot of iron that is not that you don't get as much in that area. So bringing it over helps to help the trees and plants over there. It also helps to feed plankton as you go across the ocean, which is our biggest source of oxygen, right? I think that's it. I always have to check myself on that because it's a little throws you off. But it helps feed the plankton, which is the biggest source of oxygen on Earth. And for us living in hurricane-prone areas, it inhibits hurricane strengthening because it brings in that drier air, and it's just dry areas that kind of like puts a little stop to the engine that is a tropical system. So we haven't had as much tropical development over the times we've had high Saharan dust. And for what it's worth, I hope it continues because I don't want another hurricane, especially with the sea surface temperatures being as hot as they are. So knock on wood, go Saharan dust.